Hey friends, let's talk about macros. So we've already covered the food scale, the calorie app. I use Carbon, so I'll just call the app Carbon. You can use any tracking device you want. And the first thing you do once you sign up on this tracking calorie counter is it's going to ask you to put in your weight, your age, your goals, and your weight loss goals. And there's a calculation. I think it's the Harris-Benedict equation. But once you put in your metrics and your health, your weight, body fat, level of activity, it gives an estimate of what your basal metabolic rate is. Mine, for example, is 1800. And that's without you working out. And based on your goals and your weight and how much weight you want to lose, it'll assign you a calorie limit and goals to hit. So that is your target calorie that it's a great time to live in now, where you can just download an app and all the science is plugged in. And it'll tell you the calorie goals you need to hit, and in addition to your workout and getting proper sleep. So how these things work is they will break it down into macronutrients. There's macronutrients and micronutrients. Micronutrients are your vitamins, minerals, cofactors. Macronutrients are macromolecules that make up your food sources. So protein, which gets broken down into amino acids. Carbohydrates, they're simple carbohydrates like sugar, white flour. Then there's complex carbohydrates, yams, potatoes, oatmeal. And within the carbohydrate family are carbohydrates that your body can't break down and they're passed out. It makes for good poops, and we call that fiber, and that's very important. And there are also fats. Now, carbohydrates are ultimately broken down into glucose, which is a currency for your body. So the world runs on the US dollar for international trade. Your body runs on glucose, same way. And fats are broken down into triglycerides, or fatty acids, and your body uses that as fuel and for construction. So protein is used for construction mostly, and carbohydrates are used as mostly fuel, and fats are used as both. They're a hybrid. All the cells in your body are double lipid or fat layers, and all the hormones in your body are cholesterol molecules, essentially. So fat serves two purposes. And your brain is all fat, your immune system, fat, lipid molecules, nervous tissue. So those, you're going to have to start thinking about foods in that way, because the app tracks that for you, and each one has a need. The main goal in optimizing your health, staying powerful, and keeping your metabolism up is keeping healthy muscle tissue. You have to feed it, which means you have to give it the minimum amount of protein it needs. And for reference, the range is 0.6 to 1 times your body weight. So I'm 200 pounds. So my max ceiling is 200 grams of protein. My minimum is 120 a day. And your carbohydrates are your energy source, and your fiber source. So you need carbohydrates before, after your workout, and you need fats. Your body needs dietary fats. They're each essential. I would say protein is the most important one because it maintains your muscle tissue, and you need that to keep muscle tissue on after 40, and especially if you're working out. If 1 gram of protein is 4 grams of 4 calories, so the more protein you can eat, the more satiated you are. If you think of your meal as a pie chart or plate, you want to maximize the protein in that meal. Carbohydrates, easy to overeat because they're plentiful, and because we produce insulin, people can eat a whole pizza and tons of ice cream and cake. But as you get older and your needs change, excess carbohydrate will cause diabetes. So you really need to pay attention to the carbohydrate macro that's suggested and try to stay within that. A trick with carbohydrates, I'm not saying you shouldn't eat rice or noodles. When you're recovering from a workout or hungry, you need those immediate carbs. But every time you eat a meal, try to get protein and fiber in it. Wheat bread has fiber. If you're getting rice or pasta, have some vegetables with it. Kind of slows down the blood sugar absorption, but it gives you a serving of fiber as well. But if you think about getting carb sources with fiber, those are more whole grain. And a lot of that carbohydrate content is going to be fiber. So for me, I get about 21, 22, 2,300 calories. About 20 grams of that is fiber, because instead of buying sweets, I eat fruits. And I eat avocados, a lot of avocado. I eat about an avocado a day. Your fats are 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. So fats are dangerous because you can cross your fat threshold very easily. The good thing about fats is they're self-limiting. You can only eat a certain amount of cheese. You can only eat a certain amount of fatty meat. So fat helps close your appetite and keep you full for a while. So it's good to have a balanced meal. The other thing is the app will have you choose what. So protein is your concrete building blocks. Your fuel sources are carbohydrate and fat, and you're going to have to choose. You can't have high fat, high carbohydrate, because you're giving yourself double the amount of fuel, and whatever it doesn't use, it's storing, and it stores as fat, which is why we're here. So you don't want to do that. Some people do very low carb, and they raise the fat a bit, and that works for some people. But if you're very active, you're going to need carbohydrate. You're going to have withdrawals. You're going to be cranky. So a lot of people who are very active or who need carbs will have their carbs up and drop their fat a bit. You're trying to create a calorie deficit. The protein you can't negotiate on. You should try to always hit your protein goal. But play with the levers of carbohydrate and fats and stay within the threshold that they give you. So if the app tells you we're going to set you at 2,100 calories, pick whether you're going to do moderate or high carb, low fat, or high fat, low carb, and pick your portion sizes and your food choices so you make your 2,100 with sufficient amount of, or sufficient ratio of fats to carbohydrate. So that's going to be your challenge, and just start thinking about food in terms of protein, carbohydrate, fats. When you sit for a meal, when you cook, or when you're going to order, you know you got to hit your protein so you can get a protein source. You're going to have higher carbohydrate, cut down on the fat, or you're going to have the mac and cheese, you know. So for example, this meal that I'm having, it's 1 serving of pasta, which is about 56 grams of pasta that I boil, which is about 40 grams of carbohydrate. And I have about 5 ounces of curry chicken, boneless, skinless chicken thighs, and I have half an avocado in here. So avocado gives me fiber and some fat, but this is more of a higher carbohydrate meal. And I got my protein and some carrots in there. So that's how I approach nutrition. I'm going to log this meal in my app along with other meals, and every time I eat breakfast or lunch, I just assess where I'm at, and it gives me an idea of how much calories I have left, how much protein, how much fat. So like today, I think by the time I eat this, I'll be probably close to my carbohydrate goal. So my dinner will probably be a smaller carbohydrate goal, maybe the other half of this avocado, and some protein that I have in the house here. Or if I go out, I'll make sure and choose something I eat that stays within that. It's not a very high carbohydrate, has some fats and protein. Maybe I might do sushi or sashimi or something. So that's kind of how I go, and it's going to change. If you're not very active, you won't really feel for carbs. You might be able to get away with eating less. If you're worked out that day, you're going to need more carbohydrate. So now that I told you about the scale and the app, once you go through the app and it tells you, hey, this is the calorie limit we recommend, these are your macros, you're going to enter every day, you're going to keep track of it, and then the app will actually run an average for you and have you put in your weight and tell you if you're compliant or not. So you're going to need to follow the app and play the game. It's a game. And but it will have your macros, protein, carbohydrate, and fats. So just get in the habit of thinking of food like this. And when you go to the grocery and you're cooking, think about the meals you're going to cook, and that'll determine where you are in the grocery. As a general rule, I only make the ring around the grocery. I don't run through the aisles very rarely. If I go into Publix, I hang a right. I'll go pick up some ham or roast beef. Yes, I'll pass by the bakery and I'll give myself a treat. I might have a slice of cake. I'll just eat for a couple of days, little portions of it. Or if I'm in a sweet mode, I might get the chantilly cake or tiramisu. But that'll just be for that one day. But I usually just start from the cold cuts. I'll pick up my meats, maybe some cheese, and then I'll hit the fruits, the vegetables, the back wall where there's eggs, end up with meat. And the only time I'll pop into the center aisle is if I need to get nuts, maybe purify water for my espresso machine, or I need to buy rice or spices. But I stay away from the cookie aisle or all the other stuff. My general rule is if I want something sweet, I'll just go out and buy it. Then go to a restaurant and have dessert, or that's eat fruit. So I try not to keep dessert in the house because I'll eat it. So you'll develop your own little habits and foods you eat and you cook, but get in a habit of protein, carbs. Just know you always need protein, keeps you strong. And if you've worked out that day, you're going to need carbs. If you don't work out that day, you can get away with some complex carbs. Fat is so ubiquitous, just like carbohydrate, and hidden all over, that you can afford to eat lean fats at home, but if you do eat out a few times a week, you're going to get fat. Trust me. If you make a sandwich and you put mayo on it, there's your fat. So once you start looking at the fat, like for me, my macros, I think I'm allowed 150 grams of protein, 200 something grams of carbs, and I think it's like 70 or 80 grams of fat. It's on my phone. I can't see it now. But once you see that, I used to have eggs and bacon for breakfast, high fat, high protein, and 2-3 eggs, bacon, toast with butter. You really blow through like 50% of your fat allowance in that one meal for the day, and you have the rest of the day to go. So it's really, when you start tracking your food and looking and weighing and looking at portion sizes, you're really going to see how expensive the food is calorie-wise. So because of that, I've actually cut out bacon. I love bacon, but I like bacon too much, and I like the thick cut one. So I've cut out the bacon. I really don't eat 2-3 eggs a day. If I make a sandwich in the morning with ham or roast beef, I'll just fry one egg. I'll just put a spot of mayo. I stopped putting butter on my toast, and that's reduced my fat intake and has helped me trim down, actually. So my problem was I was consuming fat, and I was fat. So a rule of thumb is your body stores fat as fat. So if you want to lose fat, you got to cut back the amount of fat in your diet. You can give yourself carbohydrate to recover, because you're going to go crazy without carbohydrates. You won't be able to sleep. You'll be cranky. You'll always be craving food. But if you cut back in your fat, your body will tap into your fat for its dietary fat needs, which is to make all the lipid layers it needs, the hormones, and as fuel in between. So fat's everywhere. You don't have to worry about fat. You buy a cheeseburger, you eat anything there's butter or fat on it, you're going to get fat. You're going to get fat in your diet. So don't be afraid to cut back a few things. And remember, it's not permanent. Once you get to the weight you want, you could put back bacon in there. It's just that when you get on this journey to optimize your health, whether it's lose weight, put on weight, reverse metabolic disease, you're changing to a different person. If you've done this for 2 years and I met you before and after, you're going to be a different person. So you will be a different person. You're aiming to be a different person after. And your attitude to certain foods might be different. Like I see bacon now as something that's rich and a treat. Like I have respect for it now. I'll have one slice. I'm good. I love eggs, but 2 might be my max. I used to have 3-4 eggs. That's now I realize, wow, you're 49, buddy. You don't need all that fat. You're not burning it. So Yeah, think of it as those, and I'm gonna go eat my macros now. And you know, a lot of people might think you're taking the romance out of food, but you're not really. You're just having a more analytical look at it. But you can still have your romance because you can be mindful of the ingredients, like you're building a building, and still make something that's cool looking like that and tasty. So, happy eating.